Thanks so much, Bob, for your
Sure.
time today. I'm interested in what domain focus you have in your investments. Like, what are you really passionate about investing in? Maybe you could talk about your firm as well.
All right. Well, what I'm passionate about is entrepreneurs, and right now, my focus is wireless and smartphone. The nature of our business is we want to find waves before everybody else finds them, and then find ways to help entrepreneurs build young businesses in those companies. And right now, I'm focused on the smartphone primarily.
Okay. And is there any exciting things happening in that industry that you see as the potential for the future?
Well, sure. We're going to deliver 2 billion cell phones this year worldwide.
Okay.
In much of the world, the cell phone is the only means of communication and the only computer that most people have.
Yes.
And that means they're moving towards smartphones. And the smartphones are growing rapidly from 300 million-ish to 500 to 700 over the next couple of years. So you've got enormous growth, and you've got these phones needing to be multilingual. They've got to speak all sorts of different frequencies to operate around the world. So they're very complicated little devices, and they're not only complicated from a radio frequency and RF point of view, to be able to speak all these different languages, different frequencies, but as you know, they're basically cameras. They're displacing cellular cameras now. They're basically your GPS device. That's your computer. It's your access to information. It's basically changing the way most of us live.
Yes, yeah. All in that little machine.
All that in this little itty bitty thing that we carry around in our pocket.
Yeah. And is your firm mainly focused on that, or?
No. I mean, my firm is mainly focused on information technology broadly.
Okay.
We've been doing this long enough that.
How many years? Tell me. I can't remember.
I got in the business in '69, so I'm approaching the end of my 44th year.
Wow.
My partner, David Morgenthaler, started doing it a year before I did. So we've been at it a couple of years,
Wow.
and we're going to get it right one of these days.
Incredible.
It's an interesting and a humbling, challenging business.
Yes.
And in the early days in the '70s, we all were jacks of all trade. You do a buyout one year and a life science deal the next year and an IT deal the third. But gradually we became more specialized, and today the firm that I'm part of, and we've kind of evolved into multiple firms even, focuses on information technology, which is all across the world of enterprise software, cloud, software tools, big data, internet services of all kinds. The internet is changing so many businesses today, like the financial businesses and the healthcare industry and all the rest. So it remains an exciting place to be able to have the privilege to spend some time.
So great that you're so enthusiastic and so passionate after all these years. You've obviously found your soul work, right?
I enjoy it. Entrepreneurs are not always the easiest people to work with.
Yes.
Some of them are pushy.
Yeah.
Some of them are aggressive. Some of them are overly optimistic. But they're very interesting animals. And if you kind of understand them and accept them for what they are, then you can help them.
Fabulous. I'm so glad that you're in the ecosystem. It's really reassuring. There's a lot of changes going on in the venture industry. Obviously, one of the main significators of that was the Jobs Act last year.
Right.
And really, I think that obviously with all change, there's opportunities and there's challenges. I'm wondering how you're viewing those changes, having been involved in the industry for so long, and what do you see as the possibilities that could come out of this, and what do you think needs to happen for the venture industry to move forward?
Well, there's been an enormous amount of change, you're right. In the '70s, the entire venture capital industry in the US, which was therefore the entire venture capital industry in the world, because there wasn't any venture capital industry elsewhere, invested about $100 million a year total. Then, led by my partner David Morgenthaler in the NVCA, in the late 70s, capital gains taxes got reduced and the regulations that allowed institutions to invest in venture capital changed. And from about 78 to about 83, 84, the venture industry grew from 100 million to about 5 billion. That's a 50-fold growth in about 5 years. And you had all the challenges that you have when industry grows that fast. And it went through a leveling out period, and then it went through an enormous growth spurt again in the late 90s, and we saw how that ended, and we've crunched back. There's been one common denominator that doesn't get talked about very much, and it's the fact that the venture industry finances about 1,000 companies a year. The whole industry, about 1,000 companies. So if you think about the US economy, setting aside the worldwide economy, there are about 700,000 businesses formed every year in this country. About 10% of them, 70,000, raise angel money, and 1/700th of them, about 1,000 of them, raise venture money.
Okay.
And so the industry is a very small fraction of the financial market, but it's very important because it creates a lot of the companies like Google and Cisco and Facebook and all these that end up being the job creators, the engines of growth. So there's always going to be change. Right now we're in an environment where corporations have a lot of cash. Angel investors have a fair amount of cash. So there's a lot of cash kind of upstream and downstream from venture capitalists. And our job is to find those of the 70,000 companies that angels finance, about 1,000 that can grow to become really significant businesses. And if we're lucky, we'll get it right 1 out of 10 times. And so, fortunately, we get well paid on those 1 out of 10.
Just to help you get along.
Yeah. And
so you don't see any major hiccups or hurdles at the moment?
Well, there's always hurdles. If our friends in Washington would just leave well enough alone, we would do very nicely.
Yes, right.
But they always want to change things. You know, they decide that stock options needed to be accounted for a few years ago, and now we have to, all the silliness of having to account for stock options,
yes,
which may make sense, as Warren Buffett says, for Coca-Cola, but it doesn't make sense for a startup. There's no way. So, but we all have to spend money to get our stock options accounted for. It's silliness, but we have to do it. Yeah. And item after item, then they decide that the analysts on Wall Street have too much power, so we're going to reduce their power. Well, the analysts aren't that important to Coca-Cola, but they're very important to some young technology IPO. So, and again, Washington makes these changes to help us, and you know, God help you when Washington comes by to help, because it means you got another challenge. So yeah, we have challenges. The Jobs Act was important to begin to soften some of that excess burden that Washington's is creating on the IPO process. IPOs are I talked about 1,000 companies a year.
Yes.
Of those 1,000 companies, less than 100 will go public. Right. But they're the kind of the home runs sometimes. So we need those, because remember, of those 1,000, 500 will not be very successful investments. So the nature of our business is we need an occasional outsized success to make our industry work. And thank goodness the NVCA has been working those issues aggressively. Yes. My firm has been a big advocate of it. Both my partner David Morgenthaler and I are past chairman of the NVCA. Right. So of the 40 years that it's been around, we've sort of been the chairman 2 of those 40. And that's for a little firm that started in Cleveland, Ohio. So we're big believers in it, and that's kind of why we're here and why we keep supporting it.
Great. Look, thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.
It's been a total pleasure meeting you, but also great feedback, and I'm certainly feeling a little bit more enlightened about the whole industry. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope it's a little helpful.
Okay.